Welcome back. This is Eric Verdi, Frederick Advice Givers, episode 144. To the right of me over here, Mr. Hugh Gordon with Interfaith Housing Alliance. I've known Hugh for 15, 16 years now from his prior life in the mortgage business, right?
Right.
You did that for quite a few years with
25.
a good friend of ours, Dana Dudley. You worked with Dana for a while.
Absolutely.
So I've known Hugh for a few years. About 2.5 years ago, you joined Interfaith?
2.5 years ago.
Okay, about 2.5 years ago, Hugh made the transition to help the other half, right? To help the other side. I know with
Right.
with what we have going on with the Impact Club, I know there's a huge need with local charities, local 501c3s. I did not realize until we started the Impact Club of how many people in and around the Frederick area there's need. So,
well, Eric, I got to tell you, one of the things I used to see as a mortgage banker were a lot of people would be brought that might not quite be ready to purchase. Their credit might not be quite ready, or maybe they didn't have enough money saved up. And we always considered them kind of annuities. We would work with them to get them ready
right.
To purchase a home. What I don't think most people realize is that there's a large segment of the population out there. They have no idea what their credit looks like. They have no idea what the first step is to owning a home, and that's what we do here. So I kind of went from a job where I was helping people, a certain segment of my business. Here I'm helping everybody to eventually have home ownership, hopefully.
All right, cool. So before we talk specifically about Interfaith, tell us your backstory, Hugh. Okay.
Okay. Well, I feel like my career has been 3 lives.
Okay.
Got out of college. Actually, I intended to go to law school, and I was working for a builder, the Kettler brothers, that built Montgomery Village. They called me in one summer day when I was down there working just as a laborer, and they said, "Listen, we've decided we want to start a management training program. We've identified 2 people that we'd like in the program, and you're one of them. Accept." And I told them, thought about it a little bit. I said, "No, I'm going to law school."
Okay.
Went back the following year. They made the offer again, and I had started to have second thoughts about going to law school. I think if you take the LSAT, the minimum score you can get is 200 points, and that's if you spell your name right, and I didn't get 200 points. So I knew law school wasn't going to be in my future. So I accepted it, and I tell you, it was a great opportunity because at the time, Montgomery Village really was country, when it was first started, and they had to supply all kinds of services to the community. So there was a car wash, and there was a hardware store, and I was Mikey. Give it to Mikey, he'll try anything.
Right.
So anything that they needed, that guy to go out there and try to make profitable, I was the guy that got sent out. So it was a great opportunity. I learned how to build a house as well, spent 4 years in the field, and just did a wide range and diverse, there was a lot of diversification, which really paid off over the long run. So while I still have regrets for not going to law school, I really have to thank, Clarence Kettler for bringing me into that program because it taught me a lot. And in 1989, the economy, as it tends to do, kind of tanked, and the way they wanted to run operations there changed. So I left Kettler Brothers. I was in charge of all construction operations at that point. I had a friend who was in mortgage banking, and I had done a little bit of that when I was running a ski resort for them. That did not stink, I can tell you. He invited me to take a look at mortgage banking, and I don't think anybody ever aspires to be a mortgage banker, but somehow or another I got attracted to it, and it was during some very good times of mortgage banking where the rewards were very worthwhile, and ended up staying in it for 25 years. Interestingly enough, about the time that I was, and this had to do with the mortgage meltdown and trying to, reinvent myself in mortgage banking after that happened, I have a friend that I worked with the Kettler Brothers and also went to high school with that I saw at a happy hour.
Okay.
And we just started talking about what she does over here. And I had, I'd done a lot of fundraising for some nonprofits that I worked for, and she knew that, and she invited me to come over and interview for a job opening they had, and here I am. So that's kind of the long story, I guess.
So where did you go to high school?
Went to TJ, was first class to go through all 6 grades of TJ.
You were?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's back when the junior high had windows.
Okay. So you're a Frederick guy, you married, kids?
Actually grew up here. I'm 3rd generation Frederick.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, where La Paz is right now was where my grandparents and my uncle had a clothing store. It was
really?
a men's clothing store, boys' clothing store, and then he had kind of a tchotchke shop, that he sold some things out of. But Yeah, it was a great little store. They tore part of it down for the floodplain,
Right.
tore part of it down for La Paz, and now actually Hooch and Banner is in the old boys store.
Okay.
And that's where it all started. For a lot of people who don't know, my parents were always involved in Frederick. My father was the mayor
Okay.
from 90 to 94. My mom was on the school board. And when I grew up in Frederick, there was nothing here, and never saw myself coming back here. But a couple of years, went to school down at the University of Maryland, graduated. A couple of years in Montgomery Village, and decided going back to Frederick. And by the time I came back here, it had gone through a real renaissance. Lots of changes. I mean, downtown it had become like Georgetown.
It's a small Georgetown, maybe
Absolutely.
even a large Georgetown now.
Yeah, well, we just figured it was a great place to raise kids, and we ended up with 3 of them.
Okay.
All girls.
All girls.
And they're all very successful now out on their own. The oldest is 38. It kills me to say that. Middle one's 35, and the youngest one's 30.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. And where's your wife from? Is she from Frederick area too?
She's from Baltimore originally,
Okay.
but they came up to Frederick when she was just a little girl. And actually, her father was the Bowen of Whitesville and Bowen Pharmacy, which is now Whitesville Pharmacy on Market Street.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you do have a long history of Frederick.
Yeah. I'm part of the old part of Frederick where everybody knew. I couldn't get away with anything on a Saturday night when I went out. If I did anything that and I wasn't out with my wife, my mother knew about it by the time I got home.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the last purchase, Hugh, that you splurged on for yourself or your family?
It's kind of crazy. It's probably been a little while, but we went to a resort in Cancun.
Okay.
And of course, you go to a lot of those places, and if you sit in, and you hear their sales spiel,
the timeshare meetings, yeah,
exactly. Then they give you a bunch of free stuff, and I sat in. And actually, the thing that drove me to this was my oldest daughter was getting to the point where she was going to be leaving the nest. She was getting ready to go to college, and I was really regretting that. So I saw this as an opportunity maybe to kind of keep the family together.
Right.
So they went out and viewed the property. I sat in for the sales pitch. When they came back, I said, listen, here's the deal. I said, you guys agree that every year, I don't care whether there's husbands, boyfriends, children, whatever,
right,
but we come back here once a year as a family. And, other than the last couple of years, we pretty much have done it every year since we bought it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what hobby or interest could you spend hours doing, Hugh?
Well, most people know I'm a runner. And, I've got a history of 15 marathons. I've run Boston twice.
Okay.
And
that's awesome. Good for you.
Great experience, but I can put a lot of hours. It's kind of my meditation. Okay. I go out after a stressful day, and you can just kind of like unwind. The endorphins kind of kick in, and but it's really just a chance for my mind to go blank.
Awesome. All right, so tell us about Interfaith Housing and what you guys do and who you help and how long you've been around.
Well, been around for 28 years. We're formed in July of 1990. Over that time, in the communities, and our footprint ranges in Maryland primarily from Anne Arundel County west to Allegheny County, and then we also do some work in southern Pennsylvania. We have contributed over 1,400 either affordable apartments or home ownership opportunities to people. And that's what we do, and it's interesting, Eric.
So how does that work?
Well, a lot of what we do is what's called low-income housing tax credits. If you go up Market Street right now, between 5th and 6th Street, there's an old county office building, which actually, talk about old Frederick. It was my elementary school.
Right.
And that's been converted now into 59 apartment units. It's being converted and it's being added on to and at completion will be 59 affordable units. But it's a great example of this low-income housing tax credit. Money, that provides about 80% of our financing. We have to go to banks and get gap financing for the difference. But
so you guys are personally developing that project to 59 units, or how does that work?
We do it with a developer partner.
Okay.
And that particular one, it's Pearl. But it's really cool because a lot of people, I think, have a misconception about who lives there. We're not subsidized housing. We're affordable housing, which means we're providing opportunities for people like policemen and nurses and teachers and the service workers that work at serving you lunch down in any of the restaurants downtown. So it's a great opportunity for them to live and work right, where they may not even need a car to get to work.
Okay.
Yep. Those are great. And then we also have a home ownership branch as well that through a program we have with the USDA allows us to bring people in, and they're getting a monthly payment that's lower than if they went out and purchased it on the through a regular mortgage banker, but they end up with a payment that's less. So let's say on a $240,000 house, if the payment might normally be $1,600 or $1,700, most of our customers aren't paying more than about $1,100 or $1,200, and they do have to put 125 to 130 hours of sweat equity into the home.
Right.
But it gives them a chance for a very low cost and a low, monthly payment to live affordably. It gives them an opportunity they wouldn't have otherwise had.
So the subsidy is from federal or state?
Well,
or local?
On the rental communities, the low-income housing tax credits, and I wish I understood the real financing part of that, but those are tax credits that are coming from the federal government down to the Department of Housing and Community Development, which then we apply for a proposed community, and then are awarded those through a very competitive process. And once we are awarded those, then we have the ability to move forward and build a community like 520 North Market Street.
So how would somebody looking for affordable housing, how would they find you?
Well, hopefully.
And who are there other nonprofits that you work with? I know a lot of the nonprofits like Blessings in Backpack and SHIP, they all kind of work together. They have their own little niche with who they help. So explain how that all.
Well, there's probably a number of ways. I mean, there's a spectrum from homelessness all the way up to, providing housing.
Right.
And we work with, I think there's been a really good networking of all the available agencies so that everybody's kind of aware of the services that we each provide. And we do get a lot of referrals. But that's an important point because not only do we build, the sticks and bricks to provide the affordable housing, but we also are all about the people because we are always in a mode of programming to bring people along to a point where they become eligible for, living stably and living in affordable housing. And that can be a year and sometimes longer process. So the programming is a big part of what we do too. And that's the people aspect, the touch that we do to make that happen.
Okay. So what I've found interviewing and talking to other nonprofits, 501c3s, is that you guys are basically a small business. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I without question. I mean, and I've been on both sides.
Right.
And we have to run probably maybe even a little more efficiently than a business does because, they've got a business plan with a certain amount of revenue that they're planning to bring in based on, the product that they're delivering. Whereas, we have, we're more limited in terms of capacity. So the people that work here really have to be knowledgeable, about what's going on in the office next door.
Right.
Because we all have to be able to pitch in. If somebody goes on vacation, doesn't mean the business stops.
Right.
Everybody has to know what everybody else is doing. So it's a real team effort to make things happen here.
So what's the driving force? What's inside you, Hugh, that has you transitioned from a profit from a mortgage banker, from working with a builder years ago, to helping to run Okay, helping to run Interfaith.
That's an easy question for me. It's really, if you meet any of the people that we deal with, and you what I call them the faces of affordability, you very quickly get taken, captivated. Because what we do, Eric, is we're not providing just affordable housing. If you listen to the stories of some of the people that we're involved with, we literally change their lives. We change their lives. We change, in many cases, the lives of their kids and the generations to come. I call it changing their stars.
Okay.
And it's so compelling that it doesn't take any time at all before you wake up every morning and it's your motivation to go to work, because in everything else that I've done, at the end of the day, I might be able to look back at the end of the day and say, I think I accomplished something. There's not a day that goes by here where I don't know specifically what I've accomplished or who I've helped. And probably, maybe once a month and maybe even more, there's somebody that we've made a big difference to in their lives that comes in here, tells their story, and if they write it down, if they come in and they talk to the employees, everybody's just in tears because we're so grateful for having been able to make a difference in their lives.
So the last 2.5 years, what's been the biggest, man, I didn't know that went into running a nonprofit, or I did not know what I was getting into with this aspect?
Well, that's, I think it probably has to do with, being the jack of all trades here. Everybody does have specific responsibilities, and obviously somebody is in charge, but I really have been, I think, surprised a little bit by how much everybody does have to contribute to the big picture and to getting things done. You have to be a little bit outside of the box in terms of not only what you might have been used to doing, but you have to be a little bit of outside of the box in terms of being creative in getting things done. One of the biggest obstacles I ran into here when I first started was the fact that if you asked anybody on the street who provided affordable housing in Frederick County, everybody thinks Habitat for Humanity, right? And yet IHA has been a major player in contributing towards affordable housing. And that was probably my biggest surprise, that we didn't have there wasn't more awareness on the street about who IHA was.
Okay, so you helped bring that awareness. So when they brought you on, Hugh, what was your, hey Hugh, we need you to take this role, we need you to do this. What was that? Because you didn't take the typical route, me speaking to other heads of nonprofits, you didn't take the typical route.
No, but they hired me to bring in money.
Okay.
To go out and find sources of donations and grants. That was something that I had some experience with.
Okay.
And it's interesting. Maybe that was my biggest surprise, because in all the fundraising that I had done before, it was really kind of targeted fundraising. So I could go out and talk to people and say, listen, we're asking you to contribute this, and we're going to accomplish this with it. Where here, the idea of affordable housing is a little more out there. People don't necessarily see how their contribution is impacting. So it's been a little more of a challenge to go out and, first of all, get people to understand that IHA is a major player in the affordable housing market, but then understand what it is that we do and why they should contribute, and make them understand who the faces of affordability are.
So do you have somebody that writes your proposals for grants for you, or is that something that you do? Because I know, like, when we at the Impact Club, like when we hand over that check, they're like, all we had to do was speak to your group for 5 minutes.
Right.
We're used to having 200-page grant proposals to get $1,000.
Right. Yeah. Grants are a challenge, and understandably, the provider wants to know that they're giving money towards a specific cause that is going to utilize the funds as they've stated. And it's become more of a challenge in that not only do you have to really state your case well, but you have to do it in 250 characters or less, or 1,000 characters or less, and that can be a huge challenge. So learning how to tell the story and telling it efficiently and effectively is really that's a challenge in grants. It really is.
So being on the flip side and never actually doing that, I would almost equate it to applying for scholarships for college. Is it something?
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe?
Well, yeah, but I'm sure it's, because you're selling yourself. I'm sure it's pretty much the same thing.
Right.
But it's grants are an important part of who, what funds us.
Right.
So it's really important that we learn how to tell our story well, and that we're able to tell it concisely and specifically, and so in kind of in terms of, because usually the people that you're applying to give you parameters and what they're looking for.
Right.
So you're trying to match your story with the needs that they're trying to fill as well, and that's a challenge. I've always considered myself a good writer. Right. I can sit down and I can write a story and I can be creative, but this is telling your story in the way somebody else is expecting to hear it is a whole different art.
It is entirely. I agree.
Yep.
All right, Hugh. So in the last 3 years, and you've been here for 2.5, what's one choice, one pivotal moment that's led you to making the change, or us sitting here today and having an interview? Or
one pivotal time, again, Eric, I think it really, once I got here and I learned what it is that we do and who we impact and the lives that we changed, it really kind of drove me a little harder to go out and explain to others why they should be participating with IHA. If you go out into the Frederick community, there's a lot of talk about the need for affordable housing. I mean, the county will tell you that they did a study 2 years ago, identified the need for 5,700. There's a shortage of 5,700 units in Frederick County. All your political candidates talk about the need for affordable housing. We are, fulfilling that need probably in as large of a scale as anybody that's attacking the issue right now. And once you kind of learn that, you become involved, you see the faces, the story gets a little bit easier to tell, but there's a real learning curve, and there's a light bulb that does finally go off that does make it a whole lot easier to go out and talk to people. Like I'm finding it a whole lot easier to sit here and talk to you about this today than I would have been able to do it a year ago.
Right. All right, Hugh, so I've sat across the mic from 143 other entrepreneurs, business owners, thought leaders like yourself, and I get to extract knowledge from each interview. You asked in the pre-interview, why do I do this? Well, that's one of the main reasons, is I get to learn more about how other businesses and organizations operate. So I want to flip the script and have you ask me a question.
Well, that's easy to do. How does IHA become potentially eligible for the Impact Club's?
That's a great question. So you've mentioned, and I've mentioned the Impact Club. So we've donated in the last 5 events. We have our 6th one coming up in May, over $113,000 to 5 local charities. There's only 2 ways, only 2 qualifications to get nominated or to present to our membership. One is you're a local 501c3, and you are. 2 is you're nominated by our members. Okay, so it's a member driven. So every quarter, members get to nominate 1 to 3 charities. They can nominate 1 charity 3 times, or they get 3 nominations. All those nominations are thrown in a hat and drawn at random, 1, 2, 3, and those are the 3 charities that come to present to Impact Club. So, Interfaith Housing has actually been nominated prior.
Oh, good to hear. Good.
But you haven't been one of the 3 that have been chosen. So yes, it's strictly by our members. Okay. So, and we're part of our second phase of what we're doing with Impact Club. First phase was getting up and running, making sure our events are smooth, which we have a very smooth event here in Frederick. Second phase is bringing awareness to our members about which charities are in Frederick and around the local areas of the Impact Clubs. So on our national site, we're going to be having, in Frederick's we've got 15 different chapters of the Impact Club. Frederick is one of the largest, and secondly, there's so many nonprofits in Frederick. So we want to bring light to each of those nonprofits where they'll be featured on our site. And it's just a matter of time until we can work our way through the various 501c3s.
Well, and I really appreciate this opportunity today because I'm assuming that maybe a lot of your members will get to see, learn a little bit more about IHA.
Absolutely, and who you help.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, Hugh, so this can go, there's been a couple interviews here that the guest and I have ended up crying on this question. So this can go in any way. It can be business, it can be life, it can be personal. What failure or loss has helped mold you into the person that you are today?
Failure or loss. One of the things that I think is really important, Eric, is that you're constantly evolving as a person, and I don't know whether I can identify a specific failure or loss, and I'm sure that I've had my share in my lifetime, but one of the things that I think is really important for everybody is to be introspective, and I don't want to say that you do this every day, but that you do it really regularly about, what did I do, that was good, that was bad, that was ugly, how did I impact somebody else? Why did that person get mad at me when I said something this way? I think you really have to do a lot of self-analysis in order to, grow, in order to start doing things better, in order to become a better person. You got to be willing to accept negative feedback from other people. You got to be willing to talk, listen, communicate. So I think more than anything, as I've seen myself, as I look back over my life, I've had some great mentors, that haven't been afraid to tell me that, Hugh, you're being a jerk. Or you need to do something a little bit different, or and when you sit down, you really think about what they say, and you have those conversations with people. that just makes you a better person. And hopefully it's made me a better person.
Cool. So where do you either see yourself, I'll let you take this either direction you want, or Interfaith in the next 3 years and then 10 years?
I'd love to see Interfaith making a bigger dent in the need for the identified need for affordable housing in the area. I mean, when you talk about 5,700 units that the county's identified, it doesn't even begin to address the fact that Frederick County is becoming an older community, and that the senior problem is coming down the road and going to add to those numbers. No matter, I feel like no matter how much we contribute in terms of providing bricks and sticks and additional opportunities, we are just putting a dent in the door of, we're fixing a little bit the dent in the door of affordable housing. So, I would love to see us become a larger player within the scope of, making sure we're, that we don't lose sight of who we are, but that we're still able to help people, but help more people. Like I said, when you see the faces of the people that we provide housing to, you would completely understand why I say this.
Awesome. All right, Hugh. So we have a lot of viewers, listeners that like to give back and like to help nonprofits, and those that actually are listening that might need affordable housing. So how would our listeners and viewers get a hold of you, find out more about Interfaith?
Well, the best way always is, if they want to stop by the office, we're here at 5301 Buckystown Pike, Suite 320, right where everybody knows Long and Foster is. You're more than welcome to stop by. You can always call us at 301-662-4225. And then certainly email is a great way as well. And I would just say, take my email. It's just hgordon at interfaithhousing.org. Not only are we looking for, and believe me, money is what makes us tick. So monetary contributions are important to us. But right now we are in a campaign to increase our volunteer base. So if there are people out there that are looking for volunteer opportunities, whether it's working here in the office, whether it's going out to one of our sites and providing, going to our senior community over on Broadway Street and maybe sitting with those seniors, providing some activities, or maybe helping to maintain the community. We have all kinds of opportunities that exist here. So, we're looking for people as well as monetary contributions.
Awesome. Listeners, viewers, Hugh Gordon, Interfaith Housing. I hope you enjoyed episode 144 of Frederick Advice Givers, and we are out.